the branding is the fun, sexy part. Like that's the exciting part. And so there's a tendency to want to rush into spending a lot of money on branding and again, like you said, you don't even know your business yet. You don't even know your client. You don't even know your services until you actually like learn by doing. And I'm a big believer in that as well. How did you pick some of your first stuff? And having working for two different agencies, seeing the kind of work that both of us churn out, what were you like, oh man, I am out of my realm? Greetings and welcome back to the Kiss My Aesthetic podcast. We have a client episode today and she's one of our very own. Cody is recently a client. Welcome to the podcast, Cody, or welcome back, I should say.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be really exciting. Cody is the mythical creature that gets referenced every single episode that we've ever had. And Cody is our online business manager. She is the yin to my yang. She's the right-hand gal that keeps this whole thing afloat. How do you describe your job to people?
This is tough, and I've tried to describe it so many different ways, but I tend to say that I partner with marketing creative teams to help translate their visions into action on the operations side. So basically helping you get from point A to point B in your business. That looks very different depending on the business that I work with, depending on the tools, the team structure, the team size. And so I wear a lot of different hats day to day. So that is the best way I've come up with to explain what I do for my business.
That's a great summary. Yeah, no, it's a great summary. And I think too, like just to bring people back up to speed of like how we even got connected, which you can go back and listen to Cody's other episode, which will be linked in the show notes if you want like a full breakdown of like online business management, her services, what she does. But talk to me about how we got connected and then also like how you've been able to stick on since then, because there's like BC is before Cody and then AC for me is after Cody. Because I can't, and I know I tell you this all the time, like I can't tell you how much it helps to have your brain put the structure to my ideas, which is exactly what you just described. But give us the origin, just the quick recap.
Absolutely. So my business was actually born over brunch is my favorite way to describe it. A close friend of mine was a copywriter or is a copywriter, and her business, it was during COVID and she was starting to kind of struggle with client management. And at the time I was working on the corporate side in CRM for marketing and sales. And so over the course of that brunch conversation, we realized that what she was missing was a CRM, just a centralized system to help her manage all of her communications, her contracts, her invoicing. And she on the spot was like, please help me set this up. And so I ended up helping her set that up, and she ended up introducing me to you. We did set up Dubsado similarly for you. And similarly in the evolution of my services, once I do a setup, I love to do training because I want every one of my clients to be independent and to understand their systems. But a lot of the time, there's just not a drive to actually manage those systems, or it can be overwhelming.
A skill set gap.
Yeah, it might even be that you don't have the time, you're just not interested. So then we continue to partner on from there. And I think largely what's happened over the course of have we been working together for 5 years now?
No way.
Was it
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think it was 2021. I think it was 2021. Well, there was like a brief pause and you left and then I begged you to come back. But yeah, wow. Time flies, man.
Absolutely. So I think over the course of those 5 years, and something that was also just a big lesson for me last year is adaptability, and just so how your business has changed and the level of support that you need across different functions in your team, and how my services have kind of changed in tandem to that.
Yeah, it's so funny for how different our actual services are. Our actual service structure is very similar. Because in the way that you came on for a build and then maintenance, I come on for branding and then creative retainer. So I think there's a lot of like very interesting parallels between those two things. But I just love the story of you coming on our team retreat and saying to me, I think I'm going to quit my job. And I said, wait. Don't do that. Talk to me about that moment for you. What about being with our team was like, oh, wait, actually, this might offer me something different than corporate life. That's a big jump.
Absolutely. And I think On the corporate side, I really did enjoy the team that I was working with and the work that I was doing because I was more concentrated in marketing automations. I got to play with way bigger platforms and more data, which I know sounds very boring to a lot of people, but is very fun to me. But what I was feeling was that I felt very disconnected from the goals of my organization. And I felt like there was not a very big focus on the well-being of the team and of the employees.
Sure.
And so I decided on that team retreat, I'd kind of been feeling this for a while and I'd been applying to some other jobs, like, starting to do the quiet quit, the step back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But when we were on that team retreat, I just felt so connected to the team and I was really enjoying what we were doing and I was seeing the vision. And so I think just a big part of that was the culture for me and
Yeah.
being in a place as well financially where I was felt like I could make the jump. I think is always the biggest hurdle that people ask me about it all the time, and I'm always saying like, make sure that you have the money in the bank to
Yeah.
make this jump, and that you have a backup plan if it doesn't quite go the way that you're planning that you want it to.
Well, and it's starting a business is not like flipping a switch and all of a sudden you have all these clients and all these opportunities, right? Like it is a slow grow process. And I think I've been doing this for 12 years now. So I feel like I forget those days of like, there were days when I'd wake up and I didn't have any client work to work on. And what did I do with how did I fill my time at age 21, 22, with this like baby business, like absolute imposter syndrome to the max. But I had like enough like hunger and drive and like curiosity to go find answers on the internet. What were some of those early days of like running your own business? You've left corporate, early days, you're like, okay, I think this is something. Like I think this could scale up.
Definitely. And I think you have to have a lot of faith in yourself. So
Yeah.
even though when I made the jump, I was working with your team and then I had
Mm-hmm.
one other contract that I was working on. And outside of that, my main focus was just, okay, how do I get the word out about myself and what I do? And I think I also took the first few months to kind of, relax after
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
the after
Regulate.
regulate after corporate life plus the side hustle for a couple years. So I think it was the foundation of having started my business as kind of that side hustle where I was working in tandem to my corporate job that helped me grow it to the right point to then take it full time. But it was, yeah, working on some of those foundational pieces, like, and realizing that I had the time and the energy to figure it out for myself. So, you know, I wouldn't want to redesign my whole website by myself now.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. But
Right.
at the time, that was my biggest focus. I was like, I need a website. I need to have this. I need to have this. I need to have this. Get all my systems in place, figure out my positioning. And so
Mm-hmm.
that part for me was very fun. And then starting to figure out those client attraction strategies and how I could position my services to continue growing from there. And I think just taking every call, chatting with every single opportunity that came through the door was one of the biggest things. I know as your business grows, you start to think more about who's your ideal client and is this a good fit? Is
Yeah.
this not a good fit? But when you're in those early days, it's kind of like, no, every client's my ideal client, and we're going to learn and learn on the job,
Absolutely.
learn by doing, and see how we can make this work and how we can continue to move forward.
Talk to me those early days. You're building your website, you're picking a like logo. I remember you told me you're like, I'm just picking it for now. Like, don't look at it too hard. It's on the top of your invoice, but I don't want you to see it. How did that process come about? Because I think a lot of people, and I know this because I talked to them on discovery calls, like the branding is the fun, sexy part. Like that's the exciting part. And so there's a tendency to want to rush into spending a lot of money on branding or and again, like you said, you don't even know your business yet. You don't even know your client. You don't even know your services until you actually like learn by doing. And I'm a big believer in that as well. How did you pick some of your first stuff and having working for two different agencies, seeing the kind of work that both of us churn out, what were you like, oh man, I am out of my realm?
Funny enough, I realized in those first few months that I was thinking a little too much about what my business name should be and what my logo should look
Sure.
like. And I think it was actually hearing you chat with people in discovery calls. And there were some people who come to you when they have a business idea and you're kind of like, you're probably not at the point where you need the branding yet. You have to actually get the investment, get
Mm-hmm.
this off the ground. And
Mm-hmm.
so I hit a point where I was like, just done is better than perfect, because I'm going to
Amen.
be sitting here forever trying to figure this out. And so my business name, which is funny, officially registered as Cody Garner Howe Online Business Management, word soup, because
Eeny,
I
meeny, miny, mo. Catch a tiger by his toe. Perfect.
exactly. Because when I went to go fill out the form online to officially register, it came up with this, and I abbreviated it somehow, and it came up with this huge warning that was like, "Are you sure this isn't taken?" And I panicked, and I was like, "Well, no one's going to take my full name." So that's how
Right.
that happened. And
Right.
then the logo, I sat there in Canva looking at blank canvas screen, realized that this was not my forte, and I went to Squarespace's logo generator, and
Amazing.
that was it. That's what we landed on. And so I think it sufficed for what it needed to be, in
Sure.
terms of building my website and having something there. But I did definitely hit a point where I felt like that was kind of hindering my credibility as I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to grow my business and kind of build my knowledge and put myself out there, which is very difficult for someone who's used to being the background person. Trying to get in front of the camera and talk about what you do is always a little uncomfortable. So adding on to that, just kind of not, I think the branding was really impacting my confidence.
Yes.
And so it hit a point where I was kind of like, okay, this is still a nice to have, but it's becoming closer to a need to have for my business.
Absolutely. No, it's so true though, because and I know you know because you watch all the discovery calls that I ever take. But I absolutely will tell people like, "Hey, you're not at a point where I would recommend because it is an investment." And I think this is where I talked about this in a few other podcast episodes of like rebranding mistakes that I see people make or like why you might be bored of your rebrand. If you're constantly changing up your branding, it also hinders your credibility. That also starts to erode how someone like thinks of you if they feel like they're coming to your page, you got new colors and all this new styles and da 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 da. And that the benefit of like working with someone that actually does this is like I can bring all my experience to the table, and also having been a client of yours, like could bring that to the table, and also like understanding the vision of where it's going. So at what point were you like, okay, now it's a need to have? How do you start to like make that laundry list? Again, you've got special insight because you see everything that we do from the back end. But how did you know, like, okay, this is when I want to do the branding. This is when I want to start doing the other stuff. And this is kind of I keep a list in my phone of things I want to buy but don't need right now. And that's how I always like, whenever I think I want to buy something, it goes on that list. And then if I think of it again, I'll come back to the list and decide if I want to buy it. But I imagine you're doing something similar on your side.
I actually started 2025, and on my vision board was that at some point in that year I was going to get branding done for my business,
Yay!
because I had a feeling. I was like, I think this is starting to hold me back, and I think that I need to get something going. So I told myself if I hit my revenue goal, that I would
There.
then invest in branding. So it was kind of like I had to save up my allowance to be allowed to go to the mall to buy the jeans that I wanted.
Yep. 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 Yep.
So because I told myself, I was like, if you can hit this revenue goal by, like, let's say September or October, then the rest of the year is kind of just the icing on the cake. And you
Totally.
can roll that towards kind of branding as your special sweet little treat to end up the year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think it was also kind of, I needed to prove to myself that I could hit that revenue goal. That was my indicator that my business is going well.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, I need this to be going well enough that I'm going to then kind of reinvest in it, because I think 2025 was actually only my second year having scaled to full time. So
True.
I needed that as an indicator that this is moving in the right direction, to
True.
kind of settle in on the branding and stay the course.
Yeah, it's this fallacy of like you have to spend money to make money. I've never really subscribed to. I think if you're going into debt over your idea, maybe it's time to rethink the idea. So I think that's a really healthy approach of like setting yourself a benchmark, setting a goal, being like, okay, if this, then that. And I think also the general rule of thumb I end up telling people is setting aside 10 to 15% of your gross as your budget is a good proportional amount to then reinvest back in the business, whether that's branding or copywriting or photography or video or ads or whatever, website design. Like that ends up being a pretty chunky budget. And the point of that being, it's like obviously relative to what that income number is, but that the point is that the money that you put into it, you're going to get a return on that investment, right? So it's
Exactly.
generative.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think branding is one of those things that, I mean, we've talked about this so many times. It's hard to track actual ROI for
Absolutely.
branding, but you know it's there. Like, you know, I know that once I actually flip all of the things into my new branding, which
Mm-hmm.
is a beast in and of itself. So
Uh-huh.
it's going to be a little bit of a rollout, but once I actually do that and I'm getting myself out there more and I'm booking new projects because people are finding me because of the new branding, that there is that relationship. And it's one of the funny things about branding is how hard that is to track, but you know
Yeah.
it's there.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun though, because it is so subjective. But I think the other thing that we got to do with your project, which is really exciting, is you didn't end up sticking with Cody Garner Howe Online Business Management LLC as a business name. And so exercise numero uno after the brand questionnaire was trying to figure out, what do you even call this thing? Because I think you are in that sweet spot of like your services are partly fractional COO, partly project manager, partly systems expert. Like there's a lot of, like you said, you wear a lot of hats, you touch a lot of different things. Talk to me a little bit about the brand naming exercise and where you felt like, was it what you were expecting, or was it like, okay, wow, this is really out of left field?
I think, and it's tough because so over the course of the exercise, Michelle proposed, you know, four names, gave reasoning behind all of them. And I sat with that for a little bit before I picked the one that I felt stood out to me the most. And so I think probably two or three of them were, I was like, oh, I expect this from the direction that our brand
Sure.
strategy call had gone. But actually, the one that I ended up picking, Opside Studio,
Woo.
was very, I think, different than what I had been expecting, but I really liked everything that it encompasses about what I do. I think I like that the studio brings in that I tend to work with marketing and creative agencies, and I like that Opside is like your operations side, or your upside, your Opside.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, really liked the way that that kind of blended everything together without necessarily leaning too obviously into any of the themes that come out through the rest of the branding.
Right. The great part about this as a business name, and I know that we're doing some business naming exercises with some current clients, is it really is the exercise in figuring out how does this represent me, but also keep it wide enough that it doesn't have to just be me. And I regret that about naming MKW Creative Co. MKW Creative Co. because MKW are my initials. Like how uninspired of a brand name, but also like that's really positioning me as like making every person think that they're just working directly with me, which is not necessarily the case as the business like builds and evolves and grows, right? So I think you've set yourself up for success of just that as a factor. But we really pulled it all together with the imagery. We talked so much about what your role is relating to the business owner. In your words, how do you describe from, an analogy perspective what the service that you're providing is, and where did that come through from the rest of the branding?
Yeah, so I think over the course of that strategy call, we touched on a lot how it's mapping. Like, so the
Mm-hmm.
main analogy is a roadmap. And like I kind of said at the beginning, it's getting you from point A to point B, figuring out the best route to get there. What are the tools? What's the talent? What are the ways of working to achieve what we need to accomplish to bring your vision to life? And so a lot of the imagery that came out in the branding was road trips, which I
Mm-hmm.
love.
Mm-hmm.
And so it also kind of related back to me. I'm outdoorsy. I'm the second the snow melts,
You're
I
out
like to
there.
be up at the cottage. I'm on the road a lot, so I think that also really resonated to me in terms of what I do, but then also bringing a bit of my personality into the brand as well.
Absolutely. Hey, KMA, as you're building your business, you're also building your community, but you might be feeling like all the tools that you need to do so are starting to weigh you down. You've got your website and socials, maybe also an app for video hosting, a calendar tool for your events, a payment processor, a community hub, a chat app, and maybe even an email newsletter. And yet you still don't feel like you can talk to all of your people at once. Social media algorithms are hiding your carefully crafted posts, and the rise of AI slop is turning people off from communities at a time that we need them the most. It's getting harder and harder to know if you're connecting with a real human being online. And none of these apps that were meant to make your business run smoother actually talk to each other all that well. As a result, your community feels fragmented and you're losing your marbles constantly switching between tabs. This is quite literally a death by a thousand paper cuts. Heartbeat, however, presents a solution. Heartbeat is an all-in-one community hosting platform that brings together your chats, courses, live events, and payments under one single roof. Heartbeat lets you own your data and your revenue without the technical headache, enabling you to host the community that you've always dreamed of. Stop managing software and start hosting your people. Ready to build your own community hub? Head to heartbeat.chat/KMA to start a free trial. No credit card required. But if you're ready to go ahead and upgrade, you can use KMA 30 to get you 30% off when you're ready to level up. And because you're a listener of the podcast, I'd like to take the time to personally invite you to join our community on Heartbeat. Head to heartbeat.chat/kissmyaesthetic, also linked in today's show notes, and we will see you there. So we also talked about with the road trip, there's like the driver and then there's the co-pilot. And I think of you as kind of like a stage manager, co-pilot. Like there's very much that role of leaving the business owner in the driver's seat and then you being there to be like, by the way, you only have 30 miles left in your gas tank. Do you maybe want to pull off and get some gas? And you're like, oh yeah, you're totally right. I was so distracted by the road, which is, I feel like I could see myself like the cartoon version of you and me sitting in a car. And that's how it is. And like all the other contractors are like the kids in the back. And we're like, come on guys, let's go. Like it's so cartoony to me, like in such a fun way. But how does that fit? Like, do you feel like you use that in your explanation of how you're talking to potential new clients or explaining your services?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it comes out in that typically the gateway to my services is through a process mapping section.
Sure.
So before I can really properly work with anyone, we actually sit down and just whiteboard it out. This is the idea. This is step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of how we get there. And then we continue to work together in terms of how to execute on all of those different steps. And so it's very much that I'm the person with the map open across the passenger seat of the car being like, okay, you've got to take this left and this right and, head straight for 30 clicks. And so I think even just in the translation of that imagery to my services, that's kind of almost always how a partnership will start, is sitting down and kind of mapping out the route. So it was almost the perfect analogy. And I use it all the time.
Yeah. I think when you can put complex things into analogies that people can understand, just makes for such a smoother transition. It's why I always end up using food. Like I use food as an analogy all the time. Everyone understands food for the most part. So explaining like we have to stock your kitchen with ingredients. It's like having brand assets. And that way, whenever you go to cook something, you know that you're working from quality. One of my favorite aspects of your branding is how we also use the imagery and the styling of it to bring in a lot of warmth. I think another opportunity in branding is to kind of assess the competitors and figure out where your open spots are in the lineup in your competitor analysis. And we did this particularly with like Avenue 8, the canned cocktails, right? Like we realized every canned cocktail the can was mostly white with some kind of variation of orange, yellow, pink, blue, like to denote the flavor. And so I said, okay, well, what's not represented on the shelf? Okay, blue. Let's go blue because it's opposite, right? And I think with yours too, like when we looked at other people offering services similar to you, it's especially systems and processes and softwares and like integrations, like that feels all very like beep bop boop boop, like robot-y.
The corporate blue.
Corporate blue, literally corporate blue. And so to bring it human, which I think is so much of your not only just like personality, but your service offering of like understanding the people and the story and the purpose, like by warming everything up and like giving it that like sun-drenched road trip type style, and even down to some of the like local variations, like have a very like highway sign kind of styling to them, I think that really, again, it gives you a chance to like get runway alongside your competitors, but also it's going to be so obvious if someone tries to copy you.
Absolutely. And I think that was one thing that was really important to me over the course of the strategy process was that my personality comes through because, you can't tell from the video, but I've got a lot of tattoos. I'm going to hop on the call. You're going to see my cat. Like,
Right.
so I think having a warmer human touch on what I do was really important to me, especially as industries are changing. Things are getting consistently outsourced to AI now. Teams are
Yeah,
downsizing. That kind of point of difference is that human touch and that warmth and the connection and build. I truly enjoy building a community with my clients as I come on and become part of their team. And I think that was actually one of the bigger things that changed over the course of 2025 was working alongside bigger teams and developing deeper relationships there.
absolutely.
Um, and it's also been something that as I've started working as well with more corporate clients, because there's an interesting culture trend right now where teams are downsizing on the corporate side, but they're realizing there's still a lot of work that needs to get outsourced. So being able to position yourself as that systems expert, but also someone who can come in and easily integrate and become part of your team has been a good differentiator as well.
Absolutely. What of the branding presentation when you got to review it, which we did something special, and I'm even going to call this out because we haven't even talked about this yet, is because you've worked with me for so long and Madison, also designer on our team, we had a fun little like designer versus designer experience at the end of last year where I designed my version of what I think Cody's branding could look like. And then Madison designed her version. But then I presented both options, which typically goes against our process, but Cody's special. So she got both. But it was so funny to me how similar our concepts were. I don't know if that's like a shock, but I'm curious as the person who viewed it blind, did a blind taste test of both concepts. What were the things that stood out to you where you're like, okay, I see where this is going? And what are you most excited about having new branding now?
Yeah, so I think that process was very funny to me because I know how your style and Madison's style are similar but different.
Uh
So
huh. Uh huh.
as I watched it through, I was like, I'm pretty sure I know who did which. then
So funny.
and then I got worried. I was like, oh no, is anyone going to be upset if I don't
Oh,
pick
no, 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 no.
theirs? Or and I ended up obviously you gave me two options, so I made a Frankenstein of both.
Of
But
course.
um, so why we present on the one concept method. But
Yep.
but no, so that was really fun to me. And I think what really stood out is that even though you and I had the strategy call, you passed along the notes to Madison, she also knows me well enough to she
Yeah,
pulled something together that was still very felt it was very representative of me.
absolutely.
So it was really fun getting to see the creative flow on both sides and incorporate both elements from both into the branding. So
But I
that
think
was
both of them being so similar is also proof to like how strong our research process is. Because
mhm.
without that brand questionnaire, I think there was a chance to go in a lot of different directions. But knowing that there were some things that had to remain true, right? Like the warmth had to come through, and this like outdoor influence had to come through, and like a little bit of a nostalgia, retro kind of like an old Land Rover on the road with like one of the tree shaped air fresheners on the that's kind of to me when I'm talking to a client, like I see this vision very, very clear. But it was really fun to see Madison's take on it and see again, like how we both kind of ended up with similar elements, similar kind of influences. And then at the end, you kind of walked away with, like you said, a little bit of a mishmash. But for the most part, like a brand that I think is going to solve a lot of these like confidence gaps that you were having with the old branding, right?
Definitely, yeah. It feels like when I look at the branding, I'm like, this is me. I feel like
Yeah.
I can do this now. Like I can
Yeah.
put myself in front of the camera. I can speak to my expertise because now, I don't have to spend 10 hours trying to put this into a social media template or figure
Sure,
out where to
sure.
position my logo. So I think it definitely gave me that confidence boost. And I think even just going through the brand strategy process kind of made me step back from my business. And it's funny for me to be saying this because I tend to do this with my clients is
Of
okay,
course.
let's take this 360 view, but of course you never do it for yourself.
Hmm.
So the brand strategy process made me kind of take a step back and realize, okay, this is the value that I'm bringing to my clients. This is the essence of my brand,
Yeah.
essentially. And
Yeah.
so kind of taking a step back and figuring that part out, even just that conversation, I left with so much more confidence about what I do and
Right.
what I bring to the table for my clients. And I think, especially in an online business management type of role, a lot of the stuff you're doing is very much in the background, and you can get a
Hmm.
little lost in the day to day. So it can be. It was a really good exercise to step back and realize everything that goes into the type of work that I do.
Absolutely. And sometimes it is that. It's that you can't see your own business because you're in your business. And so zooming out helps. But also now that we have this analogy as a framework, I feel like that gives you so much more creative leeway to know like we want to get your brand to the point where someone sees something, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so Upside Studio coded. Like it could be that strong, right? Like I think that's where we're going. And so that's what's really exciting is like creating something that's outside of yourself. And you've watched me do this for as long as we've worked together, is I've really had to work on, okay, what's Michelle and what's MKW Creative Co. Because for most of my business and most of my professional life, those two things were like, that Venn diagram was a circle. And so it's figuring out like, okay, what are things that Michelle does that are different? And I think now because you have a brand that's also not named after yourself, it's like,
Yep.
okay, that's Opside Studio. And now I get to be Cody. And like that kind of that delineation, just from like an entrepreneurship perspective, is so helpful because I think too, you can like step into that character version of yourself that's represented in your business. And then you can also like kind of take the mask off and like be a human being.
Absolutely. And I think that was one thing I believe that had been contributing to the
Yeah.
struggle of, being the person in front of the camera is it's not only is it my face, but it's my name is so
Yeah.
completely attached to this. There's no separation. What if I say something wrong?
Yeah.
And so I think having that delineation, and especially as my business continues to grow, I'm still figuring out what I want that to look like. And I think one direction that will likely go is growing my team.
Yeah.
And so as I step into that phase of my business, being able to have a name that a team member can operate under without
Sure.
feeling like they're pretending to be me is also
Sure.
going to be very helpful.
Sure. Uh, your brand rollout. Give us some previews, what you're working on. What are all those steps that it's going to take to actually bring this to the people? And how can we support you, find you, follow you, pay attention, all that good stuff?
I think the brand rollout is probably going to take me until the end of this year. So it might be a fun 2027 reveal. But I think because typically with Q1, on as an online business manager, I found it's kind of my busiest season. So
Yeah, fair.
we got me my assets right in time for me to book 4 new projects. And
Amazing.
so, which is great. We it's
Yeah.
a good problem to have. But I think that likely means that it's probably going to be over the summer that I'm going to be flipping my
Yeah.
website and kind of starting to get the rest of the foundations underway. But at the moment, I am still just codygarnerhow.com, Cody OBM on Instagram, but coming soon there,
Coming
and
soon.
there will be coming soon banners on both the
Perfect.
website, the Instagram, the LinkedIn, when the kind of official flip over to the Opside Studio is happening.
Well, and make sure you're paying attention over on MKW Creative Co. because we will be sharing some of the branding before that. So
Yes.
we will most definitely be recapping everything that we've designed so far. I think it's one of my favorite projects from last year, and that's not even just because it's you. I really love how the analogy sold it for me. Like the way that you could take something, and again, knowing that you were catering to the person that is a creative that like understands world building, that understands but like is overwhelmed by systems or intimidated by systems, being able to take complex concepts and just like boil them down to an experience that everyone can understand is such a useful explainer for what it is that you do. And I think that what we landed on is such a wonderful solution. So I'm so excited for you, and I think it's just going to be so wonderful once everybody gets to see it.
Definitely. No, I'm excited to roll it out. And it was really funny. I realized I was like, oh, I'm one of those horrible clients that you're trying to get a launch date
Oh
from.
no, girl,
And
no.
and I'm like, oh, it might be not till like November, December, but no, I'm
Listen,
really excited for the
to each
rollout.
their own. To each their own, but also like I think a summer launch makes a lot of sense. I think a summer launch is a great idea. And I think it would be so fun. Like there's so many fun ways that you can play with this brand. Like I'm dying for you to get a custom air freshener to like be able to send to clients, being like, hang this on your rearview mirror and think of me every time you get in the car. Like that's such a fun, like, I think that feels very summer. It feels very late summer, early fall. The whole brand looks very late summer, early fall. So take the time that you need, girl. I think this is just fine. I think you'll be just fine.
Perfect. Yeah. And I might be knocking on your door again for some help with the website, because
I think you know how to find me, Cody. I think you know how to find us. So thanks everyone for listening, and be sure to keep your eyes and ears out for Opside Studio, officially called Opside Studio, coming to a feed near you. And I definitely think you should have a party, Cody.
I think that'd be a lot of fun. So
I think you should have a party. I think it should be like beach bonfire, like pull up in your car, s'mores, like lake party. That sounds very up your alley. Yeah.
I like
amazing.
it. I should.
Yeah, put it on the calendar. Anyway, thanks everyone for listening. Make sure you send this episode to a friend, maybe somebody who's considering rebranding if they need to work with us because they're feeling maybe the feelings that Cody was feeling, maybe feeling a little stuck, a little uninspired, a little, intimidated, a little out of your realm, and just the difference that it can make to have branding that you're excited about. Don't forget to leave a comment, save it, share it, post it, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for being here, Cody.
Thanks for having me.
Catch you next time. Bye.